How is everyone doing? That doesn't sound good. Good afternoon. How is everyone doing? That's more like it. Welcome to Leadership Lecture Series. Just a couple, while folks continue to get drinks and whatever they need, I'm going to start off with a couple of housekeeping stuff. You have sign-in sheets at the middle of the table, so please be sure to do that. Those of you who have been part of the series for the entire semester or one or two, or this is the third one for you, you know you get your leadership medal. Please be sure to put an asterisk next to your name so we could be sure to follow up with you after this final session for the semester. Yes, sad to say, it's already the final session for the semester. But on that note, it's also a very exciting session because we have our panel, which is something I always look forward to. To make the most of time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. You know, we're just going to be quiet on that end a little bit. Welcome to Leadership Lecture Series. This program is brought to you by the Office of Leadership and Student Involvement. Again, I'm Denise Imala Rogers, and it is a pleasure to introduce our director. She's in the room with us this afternoon. Nicole?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited.
And I will not get in the way of you and the exciting, informative advice of our panelists. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. On the panel this afternoon, first of all, what we're talking about. I know the topic probably got a lot of folks out here. In addition to, let's say, the names on the panel, right? We probably recognize some of these folks and know we might have taken a couple classes or interacted with them and know they might have a lot to say on this topic. Specifically, we're talking about soft skills. Leadership demands soft skills. Last week, we talked a bit about emotional intelligence, and this continues along that topic, so we know it's all about relationship and leadership. On the panel this afternoon, we have Dr. Narkita Sparkman. She serves as a faculty in Human Services. September Sanderlin, she serves as Vice President for Human Resources. Dr. Dana Burnett, he's also a faculty in the Higher Education Department, and I have the pleasure because he actually served as my advisor and mentor, so special note there for Dr. Burnett. Dave Harnish, ODU COO. With that said, it's a pleasure to introduce our panels. How our session will work this afternoon. We will open it up so they can share their stories, paying highlights to those where relationship played a key component in their success. They will each go for about 7 minutes or so. We'll hold all questions until the very end. You have note cards on your table, so please feel free to jot down notes, and then I'll take those at the end. Good? With that said, I'm going to open it up, no particular order, for our panelists.
I feel like, what was that show where with the real so-and-so stand up? I'm going to stand up. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Do you want me to go there or this? Okay, this will work.
Oh, you can go there.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. My name is September Sanderlin, and I'm the Vice President for Human Resources. I've been here at Old Dominion University coming up on 18 years, and the entire time I've been in human resources and started off as the training consultant and then had additional positions until becoming the Vice President a little over a year ago. And I was really excited when I heard today that the topic that we should focus on was really soft skills, and in particular relationships, because before I even honed in on that aspect of this afternoon, when I was first asked about participating in the leadership panel, and I was just thinking about, well, what do I have to share? You know, what do I have to talk about? And I landed on relationships, because relationships are very important to me, and it's one of the things that I also try to foster in the department that I work in Human Resources. So then when I realized that we were really going to talk about relationships, I said, this is absolutely perfect. So what I want to say to you as it relates to leadership skills, in particular those soft skills. The opposite side, I think of those soft skills as the human level aspect of what you do. For everything that you do, for every transaction that you have, there are two aspects of it. There's the business side of it, and there's the human side of it. Now, everyone sitting in here, either you're a student or you're a faculty member or whoever you are, You are highly intelligent. You have invested a lot of time in your education. You've invested a lot, or you are investing a lot of time into your craft, so to speak. So you're going to get the business side because you're going to focus on that. You're going to learn how to do that. You're going to be afraid to make a mistake, so you're going to make sure that you get that part right. But the part that we're not automatically taught is the human side of it. And that's where the relationships come in. And that's the part that people will remember. When I think about all my years of working, and it's been a long time, I'm just going to let that pause for a second. When I think about all my years of working, and I think back to leaders that I've had, managers, mentors, past and present, when I think about what I have valued most out of those relationships, it had to do with the human level stuff. It had to do with the human level stuff. It had to do with the things that he or she did that demonstrated to me that there was care and concern, that there was respect, mutual, and that there were opportunities for me to take risk, and that there were opportunities for me to make mistakes. That's human level stuff. And it was also, of course, balanced with the business side in terms of expertise and providing guidance and on, as it related to human resources. So all of that was very important. When we think about relationships, there are very key relationships that I urge you to foster. You want to have first and foremost, and when I say first and foremost, this is just me saying first and foremost. It's not the gospel, but this is how I feel about it. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you have solid relationships with your family. Okay? Take care of home. Take care of home. Because then your family will help you and support you so that you can go and be you and do the things that you do in the work environment. You want to have a good, solid relationship with the person that you report to. You want a relationship that's built on mutual trust and one that's built on respect. And you can't, a lot of times, well, this person should respect me for this or this person should respect me for that. And yeah, we all want to expect to be respected, but it truly is earned. You don't want to be disrespected, but it truly is earned. So do things that build character, those integrity moves, honesty. I mean, these may be basic stuff, but trust, honesty, integrity, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, tell a lie. That will damage your relationship so incredibly well. When you make a mistake and you know you've made a mistake, the first person that you should reach out to about that mistake, I'm talking about the work world now, is your boss, to say, this is what's happened and this might be the outcome of it. Now, maybe you didn't realize it was getting ready to happen, and if you're called on the carpet on it, be willing to own it. When you make a mistake, be willing to not just apologize for it, but express how you're going to fix it. You also want to have a solid relationship with your subordinates. They need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to know that at the end of the day that you are always going to have their back. Okay? You want, yes, sir?
So do you go about that by trying to explain in the detail why you're doing decisions?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. I do believe that it's important when it comes to decisions to explain as much as you can explain. There are some things that happen that you have to hold close to the vest. And I think it's important to be honest in saying, I can tell you this much I can't share with you yet. And I think people respect that. You want to, in terms of relationships, to praise publicly. And when there are opportunities, and there are always opportunities to give corrective feedback, to do that privately. It's important to have relationships with the people that you serve, whether those are your internal customers, so to speak, or the other students, to have a solid relationship with that. And when mistakes happen, they're going to happen. They're going to happen. It's a fallacy to think that you're going to I'm going to have 100%, perfect rate, no errors. You're going to make errors. You're going to make errors, but it's how you fix it. It's not that you did it. It's how you fix it. recover from it. Acknowledge what happened, why it happened, what you're going to do so that it doesn't happen again. And if you're in a position to give a little something for their trouble, then you want to do that as well. Okay? Also, in terms of relationships, don't forget to have a good relationship with yourself. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We're so critical of ourselves. We don't give ourselves permission to make mistakes. That is how we grow. That is how we learn. If there's something that you are afraid of, and we are all afraid of something, one of the most challenging things might be to really identify exactly what it is that you are afraid of. And once you identify that, recognize that you're not the only person that's afraid. That anybody else who stood in your position for the first time, they were afraid too. And that other people that you surround yourselves with, other leaders, anytime anyone is faced with something new or you're traveling waters that you haven't traveled before, there's a certain measure of anxiety. It's okay to have that. One of my favorite books is by a woman named Susan Jeffers, and she's passed away now, but it was an empowering book. It was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And that really helps in having a solid relationship with yourself in terms of building confidence. And lastly, you want to give people around you an opportunity to have a good relationship with you and with each other. In our Department of Human Resources, we're a relatively small division. There are only like maybe 22 of us. This was required reading for the department. How full is your bucket? Bucket. This is, and I know I'm talking more than 7 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up real quick. This is real human level stuff. This is real human level stuff. The premise of this book is in every interaction that you have with someone, when you walk away from that interaction, either you made them feel better or you made them feel worse. And that if you made them feel worse, it's like you took out of their bucket. If you made them feel better, you dipped into their bucket. But the good news is, when you dip into their bucket, when you fill their bucket, you fill your bucket. And it's contagious, and you want to do that more. When you take away from someone else's bucket, you take away from your bucket, and it leaves you depleted, and you know it. So in conclusion, and you can ask anyone in the department that I work in, they will tell you that they have heard me say this. In conclusion, when you dip from someone's bucket, or when you do something that you know, I think I may have ripped this relationship a little bit, fix it. Fix it right away. Fix it, fix it, fix it. Because if you do not fix it, then you do not have freeness of speech with that person, because it's in the way. It's in the way. It's in the way of progress. It's in the way of why you are here. It's in the way of your doing your job. It's in the way of your empowering them to do their jobs and to do them fully. Okay? So, thank you.
Thanks, September. Very profound. I want to encourage you guys to hold questions until the end. Please feel free to use your index cards. Just write them down, and we'll be respectful of their time so we can get to all the panelists. Okay? Next on the panel, no particular order. Yeah, you can. Do I need to stand up? You can be comfortable. Be you. You do need to speak into the microphone because we are recording.
Okay. I'm Dr. Sparkman. I'm in the Counseling and Human Services Department, a professor of human services. My background specifically comes from working with city government on the human services side, leading evaluation teams for programs that had budgets of like $45 million. Evaluation teams are a little bit difficult to navigate. And that's because we're going into an agency and we're evaluating their program on compliance with government standards. And when we say compliance, what do we think of? Taking away money, right? So one of the things that was really important was those soft skills. And fresh into the program, I wanted to go out to these agencies and I'm ripping them apart. You're out of compliance, you're out of compliance. And that established really bad relationships. They hated me coming. They didn't want to cooperate. And I learned over time that communicating, developing these relationships like September talked about was very important. And I had to make some changes. And so the changes that I made first was getting buy-in. And buy-in, establishing those relationships with all the key people who are involved in it. So I would go out to the agencies and just have a chat with them and say, I'm not here to rip you apart, but we're all in this together. So I created a team by creating this learning culture where they can give me feedback and they're willing to accept feedback from me. Okay? And so establishing that relationship, that rapport was very important. Being really human and understanding some of the things that they were navigating through, some of the issues that they had within their agencies was very important. So I had to be more on their level, understand where they were coming from, being able to communicate with them, and then also having the door open so that they can communicate with me. And so that helped me not only to lead teams, but to think about life in general, working with clients, my interactions with people, understanding people, and being more of an active listener. And I think that's one of the really important soft skills you need to have, is sometimes you don't need to talk, you just need to listen, and you get a lot out of what you need and direction you need to go in just by being able to listen. I think a good leader listens to their team, a good leader listens to their agency, a good leader accepts feedback and takes what they can use, and what they can't use, they save it for later.
I have a question. When have you encountered somebody that just wanted it their way? How did you deal with it?
All the time.
Okay.
When you're leading evaluation teams, you have the agency director. They're the head honcho over there. Okay, they run their agency the way they want to, so they want things the way they want them. I think establishing a relationship was very important, where we can come in and say, okay, this is what the compliance says, this is how you're doing things, so let's sit down and talk about it. And we would sit and just talk it through, just on a real common level. So they're not embarrassed in front of a bunch of people. They don't have a big report that says out of compliance. They know what's coming before it comes. So I would do things like have debriefing meetings. Communication seemed to be the biggest thing that people needed. First, they needed reassurance that I wasn't coming out there to judge them or tear their agency up or take funds from them. So we had to have a communication meeting right in the beginning, getting everyone on board, let them buy in, see my personality, and say, okay, she seems pretty nice, we'll talk to her. That was important, establishing that rapport. Then as I went through their agency and doing these evaluations, having debriefing meetings, maybe weekly, just saying how things are going. Like, you guys are doing an excellent job. We saw this, we saw that. And these are some areas that weren't so good. And sandwiching that in between all the great things. And they accepted it better. So I think just changing how I did things helped to those directors to back down just a little bit and get some things accomplished. Because in the end, everyone wants to keep their funding and keep their agencies running. And that was my role, is to make sure that we just kept the funding in the city.
How do you adjust with meeting deadlines and time? Because that's, I like to communicate, and sometimes I'm pushed to a certain extent where, I don't know how to be nice anymore. I need this done. So how do you balance both?
Time management is really crucial. Of course, you're trying to meet deadlines. I had, I'll give you an example. I had one director who just didn't want me to come, so she kept changing the appointments every time I would get ready to come out. So I had to go to some unique tactics to get out to the agency. And I had to do a pop-up visit. Like, look, we have to get this done. The government wants this, and we have to get it done. So let me, meet me, let's talk about it and see how we can get it done. But I think that sometimes you have to step away from it and then come at it at a different angle. Because unfortunately, people like to be, valued and massaged and feel important. And you have to do that all along the way, somehow. Even as busy as you are. We used to evaluate 9 different agencies at the same time. Okay, that's a tight schedule. We're out all day, and I had one team. Okay, and I had to massage them so they can keep working. So I had to bring donuts, I had to bring coffee, sometimes I had to get get lunch, give when I could give, where I had it. If I had a couple dollars, I said, okay, I could get a case of donuts for this much, so that they can feel important along the way. Or sending them just a note, like, I saw what you did, and this is awesome, and making them feel open to talking to me. But it is difficult. Meeting deadlines is very difficult, especially when you're working with government agencies. But you just do it. And sometimes for me, that meant long days, early mornings.
Thank you, guys. I want to, again, encourage you guys to hold the questions. I know it's difficult because it's hard to hold on to that question. Use the index cards so you don't forget them. But I do want to have the opportunity to get to all our speakers so they can share their advice with us.
Hello, I'm Dana Burnett. And while September's been here a while, and you'll learn that Mr. Harnage has been here a while, I've been here forever. This is my 43rd year at Old Dominion University. And I have a quiz for you today. Who would like to be the first volunteer? Okay. And let's find out first who you are.
Javon Welch.
Would you like to stand up? I promise that this won't hurt. So the first question, Javon, is how do you put a giraffe into a refrigerator?
This is going to sound a little psycho, but in pieces.
Oh, I didn't know you were that kind of a person. Well, so was I. I was too when I was an undergraduate. But no, if you're thinking about leadership, this is what you do. You open the refrigerator door, you put the giraffe into the refrigerator, and then you close the door. Isn't that simpler than cutting up, Even a biology major probably could think of that. Well, don't think so much. The point and how that relates to leadership, it seems to me, thank you, Javon, is that we need to be authentic. We need to think simple. We need to understand who we are so we can be that same person to the people that we lead. Don't try to mimic other people's leadership. Be authentic. Be yourself. That's a soft skill because people want to know who you are, what they can expect from you. And in order to do that, you need to understand, as September said, what you can expect from yourself. So be authentic. Be who you are. Authentic leadership requires you to understand yourself. I have another question. Do I have another volunteer? Okay. Over this side of the room, I notice the people that I know aren't raising their hand. But would you like to stand up? And who are you?
Carlissa.
Carla? Carlissa. What a pretty name. So, Carlissa, are you ready for this question? How do you put an elephant into the refrigerator?
You open the refrigerator door, put the elephant in, and then you close the door.
No. Carlissa, don't sit down. I'm going to tell you how you do this. Did you forget that there's a giraffe in the refrigerator? So what do? You take the giraffe out, then you put the elephant in, and then you close the door. Of course. Thank you very much. Carlissa, you need to be attuned to what's going on in your organization if you're a leader. You need to understand whether somebody has had a bad day. You need to understand if maybe it's not just a bad day, but maybe their mom just went into the hospital. Or you need to understand that you really don't have enough money to do that event that you want to do. Attunement is another soft skill, and it means not staying in your office with your door closed if you're a leader in an organization, or not being visible and available to people in your student organization. It means listening, and it means being aware of what's going on. Attunement, that's the second. And part of attunement is empathy, which is a third soft skill that the elephant and the giraffe can teach us. Because empathy is putting yourself into the shoes of the other people that you're working with. Trying to understand where they're coming from is certainly part of attunement, but empathy is very important. I need another volunteer. Yes, sir. Okay, the Lion King, you know the Lion King, is hosting, let me ask who you are first.
I'm Anthony McNeil.
Anthony. So this Lion King is hosting an animal conference. All the animals attend except one. Which animal doesn't attend?
First, I need to assess who I have to know who I'm missing.
Okay. He's an analytical person.
Also, I need to ask the other animal.
I'm asking you a question. Who is it? Who is it? I've only got 7 minutes here, Anthony.
You want
to phone home?
I'm not good with that.
Well, Anthony, the answer is the elephant. You remember the elephant's in the refrigerator, so they can't get out, can't attend. So now you're going to say the elephant? Yeah, the elephant. So what does that tell us? You have to understand the history of your organization, the traditions, the history that has gone on before. When I first came here at Old Dominion University, we had almost no traditions. This guy here who's going to back cleanup helped us establish quite a few of those traditions. Are you going to talk about any of those? You know that you can't remember. You know that seal that's out in the middle of Kaufman Mall? You remember that, Dave? Well, that's the one you want to jump on at some point in the future, not the too distant future, I hope, for some of you. You know, when you walk across the mall the final time when you go to graduation, he helped us. In fact, that was his idea. That was a tradition that we established, and there are many more traditions that we have now. Your organization, wherever you work, whatever organization you join, has traditions, a history. And you as a leader need to understand and appreciate some of those traditions, the history of your organization. Okay, I'm almost done. I need, of course, one more volunteer. Okay. You are?
Jaya.
Jaya. There's a river that you must cross, but it's infested with crocodiles. And you don't have a boat. So how do you manage to get across it, Jaya?
Step on those crocodiles.
Step on the crocodiles. Jaya, that's a great idea, but it's wrong. Do you remember the conference that the Lion King was sponsoring? All the animals, including the crocodiles, are at that conference. So you just put your foot in there and you walk across the river. Okay? Well, anyway, have you been listening? Well, listening is one of the most important soft skills that we have. And it's not just listening. It's active listening, which means that Jaya, if you repeated almost everything that I'd said to you in your head, you'd have remembered that they were at the animal conference. So active listening requires that you listen with all of your being, all of your physical ability, and to try to repeat what the speaker has just said, which is?
Try to remember what you just said.
Try to remember. See, you can, even if you're active listening, you probably only get about maybe 75 or 80% of what somebody said. So anyway, active listening is important. Thank you very much.
Well, I need to come up here because I like to see all of you whenever we're interacting. there's a very important, is this on too? There's a very important reason, and that is that I think listening happens many different ways. You communicate with your eyes and your body posture, and you need to be attentive to that. Well, I wanted to go last because that just allows me to, in my own way, highlight what I think is the very valuable advice that you've heard already. But I'd like to approach this from a little different perspective. Well, Dr. Burnett has been here at Old Dominion for 43 years. I've been working in higher education for 43 years as well, and had the fortune of being in several different universities. And that's a learning experience in itself when you are immersed in different organizational structures. And the thing I'd like to share with you is what I believe are the experiences I've gained over those 43 years that are truly important to me from a leadership perspective. One is you need to understand that you do not have the right to be a leader. It's an honor. Not everybody gets that chance. And you have to understand that to be a leader, people have to be willing to follow. And that does not happen naturally. It happens because you earn people's respect and trust. And you have to do that every day. There's not a single day that I'm going home that I don't think back through the day and say, gee, I wish I'd have handled that differently. I wish I'd have said something differently. Now, we all get under pressure, and as a leader, you are under immense pressure because every day, all of those people that look to you have issues, and all of those issues accumulate to you, and you have to separate them. Every time you're talking to a person, the most important issue for you to deal with is their issue, not the person you met with an hour before. So you earn their respect by doing that. You also have to keep in mind we are all people. We are frail. We have challenges. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're not geniuses. None of us really walk on water. And you have to take into account your own personal frailties as a leader and understand that those around you have those as well. You must genuinely care. You have to care for the people that trust you and look to you to provide leadership. Now, I've known lots of different styles of leadership in my life. The guy that says thank you every other word, and sooner or later that's hollow. But if you genuinely care about those people, it will display itself in ways that are meaningful. Just asking someone, how's your children? You know, you heard that their parent is sick. How are they doing? And you must mean that from your heart. It's not a rudimentary practice. Because the most important thing you have to understand about leadership, it is not about you. You're not important. I've known people that expect to be anointed because they hold a position. Doesn't work. It's not about you ever. It's about your responsibilities to the people that you've been given the honor to lead. You can never afford to be anything but honest. You know, I've known people say, oh, I really care about my folks. Yet they're unwilling to be honest with them. It's easy to be a leader whenever I'm just giving everybody good news. If you genuinely care about someone, you're willing to talk about the difficult things and help them. Remember, your job is to help them be successful. You will never be successful as a leader unless your people are successful. Which means you got to be willing and have enough courage to deal with issues straight up. You really can't pull any punches. You got to be kind. You got to be compassionate. You got to care. But you got to be straight up with folks. Don't leave them guessing. You know, sometimes you run the risk of being misunderstood when you take that course of action. Oh, well, he's a pretty blunt person. Sometimes, yes. You know, you ask a question about how do you get people motivated sometimes when you're kind of at the 20-yard line and you need to score. Be straight up. Be honest. But when you do that, always make sure that as the leader, you are offering to help them as an individual be successful. If you care for them, they will care for you. And you can always depend on that relationship. When times get hard, I can depend on the relationship with the people that know I care about them and know they care about me. And it's all about balance. If you think about the world we live in today, where we are constantly bombarded with things, you know, your sensory gets overloaded, and so you have to balance those things. Think about the last time you were really challenged somewhere or with a task, and someone you viewed as a leader just looked at you and said, "You're doing okay. We'll get there. How can I help you?" And how that made you feel. Versus the time you encountered someone that said, "I don't care that you've been sick. I don't care that your mother's ill. Just get it done." And how that made you feel. And what you would be willing to do for that second individual compared to the first. You know, in my years of doing this, I've seen almost without exception young people that are put in their first leadership roles, and they want to take command and control and direct and demand and all of those things. And I did it. And I was probably really good at doing that at one time. And I learned from that experience, and as I've watched young people develop and tried to help them develop and to develop myself, that what my grandmother used to tell me is probably the most sage advice you can ever get in your life. And that is, treat people like you want to be treated. And there's no magic to that. So thank you very much.
Thanks. At this time, I want to open the floor for questions. I will be coming around with the microphone so we can have others benefit from the questions and topic we're discussing this afternoon.
name is Asim. My question is that what should we do if the other person is not honest with us, and we try to honest with him? How to treat with this? Yeah. Anyone?
Give me that. Thank you. I think, first of all, you do a fact check. Because sometimes we assume that the person's not being honest with us when we may not have all the information. So first, get all the information, do a fact check so that you know. And then look at whatever the situation is, because situations oftentimes have different dimensions to them. So was the person dishonest in all of the dimensions, or were they dishonest in one dimension or two dimensions? You have to have a conversation about it. So that when you have that conversation, focus on the facts. Don't use language that's absolute. You know, you never tell the truth. You misrepresented this. Focus on what was factual. State your expectations. State the outcome of the action that was taken and how you're going to go from there.
Remember I said be straight up. If you expect people to trust you, then you have to trust them. If you don't trust them, and you do have adequate evidence that there's a reason for you not to trust them, be straight up.
Remember empathy, putting yourselves in the shoes of other people. You might want to find out why they're being dishonest. Maybe they don't know how to do the job, and so they're cheating on it. So it may be important for you to try to understand how that person is viewing the situation and put yourself in their shoes before you begin speaking.
We're going to move to the next question.
Being a leader would mean that you would have to make some really harsh decisions as well at points. And where would you actually balance between being soft and having to take that harsh decision? Because when you're always soft, then people would maybe sometimes take you for granted. And when you actually have to make the harsh decisions, softness would not really work.
Well, I'll let my colleagues amplify, but I don't think soft skills necessarily mean wishy-washy or necessarily not confronting the hard decisions. I think soft skills enable us to confront the hard decisions effectively, or more effectively than just screaming and shouting.
And I concur. It doesn't mean being weak. It does not mean being weak. And if you feel weak when you are demonstrating soft skills, then that lets you know that there's some more work that you want to do on yourself. And just speaking for me, in human resources, there are a lot of hard decisions that have to be made. And there are decisions that sometimes have a negative impact on people, and they always hurt. And I'm not saying for you to do this, but for me, I don't want it to stop feeling bad. I balance that, but I don't want to lose that compassion for this is a difficult decision, and recognizing that even in situations where the person may have brought the outcome on him or herself, recognizing that this is still difficult and that it's still going to be a bad situation for that person. I think that just helps you keep that empathy and that human side of what we have to do.
One thing that I found was preparation is important. I've seen people blindside people with things, say one thing, and then blindside them with a harsh thing. I've always told them this is what we're looking at, and these are the two outcomes. It can go either this way or this way, and this is the person who has the final decision. But I'm letting you know before I leave today, this is the issue. So I think being straight up, preparing people for what the outcome could be, also helps to soften the blow if it's a harsh blow, but helps to understand that you do have empathy, you do have compassion. That's the reason why you're preparing them for the situation.
Moving on to our next question.
My name is Christian. My question is, I understand that trust plays a big role in a leader, and where's the balance line between you trusting your subordinates, your teammates, from you having your own back and you covering your own work ethic? So where do you draw the line of, hey, I have to trust these people, but how much trust do I give them?
From my perspective, I don't think there is any degrees of trust. You either do or you don't. So I'll translate your question into a statement of how much leeway do you give people and the responsibilities that you hold them accountable for. For the answer to that, you get the famous answer of, it depends. Because it really depends on that individual and your efforts to understand the individual's strengths and weaknesses that we all have, and what you are doing as the leader to develop those people such that the outcome of their work may be of higher quality, but that doesn't mean I don't trust them. Trust is really about, are they honest with you? Are they willing to step up? Are they part of the team? Are they on the same agenda? And you as the leader, quite frankly, have to provide that direction, and you have to set the environment by which you and people around you work together. You set the climate. If you think about that, if I come into the office every day and I'm kind of grouchy and I don't care, I don't speak to people, I'm setting the environment. I set the tone. But if I treat people in a way that we may be faced with challenges, but we're here together, that environment will sustain you through those kind of issues.
It depends, as Dave said, on two things. I'll fill in that blank. It depends on the competence of the person that you're dealing with, and it depends on their motivation. And depending upon their competence and motivation, you may decide to be more or less directive, and you may decide to be more or less supportive.
And in harmony with these two gentlemen, I also believe that with trust, that there are dimensions of trust. For example, you may trust a person's knowledge and their expertise. However, you may not trust that person to take one for the team because they've demonstrated that they're all about self first. You may trust this person to always be on time and to be where they say they are going to be, but perhaps you don't trust their soft skills because when they interact with people, they're a little abrasive. So it really does go to, it depends. And what dimension of trust is important for the situation, and it's not an all or nothing.
Thank you. I'm going to move to the next question.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth. And my question was, I believe Dr. Burnett, you mentioned do not mimic others people's leaderships. So, but how can we grow if we don't if we don't copy what a successful leader does? Like, how can I develop?
I would not copy somebody's leadership style. I would adapt it to your own strengths, your own weaknesses, and I think we have to recognize what our strengths and our weaknesses. Sometimes we say strengths and challenges. I think that's wrong. I think you need to know what you can't do. When I played baseball, I couldn't hit the curveball. I knew that. Another thing I can't do is dance. I never will be able to dance. So I think you need to know yourself and say, well, Dave seems to lead successfully this way. I think I could do that too because I know myself. But if I see Dave dancing, I say, I'm going to try those moves, I know that's not going to work.
And just to piggyback off what was said, it's important to do a self-assessment. For instance, Dave said be straight up. If you are uncomfortable with being straight up, then you need to analyze why you are uncomfortable with it. What particular part of it makes you uncomfortable, and then deal with yourself so that you can be effective at it.
I'd just like to offer this in response to that. Remember when I talked earlier about what I've seen in my career of young first-time managers? There are some consistent things that happen, and I think Dana is absolutely right. Don't be what you're not. But you have to remember your experience is going to change you over time. And so what you're looking at doing is learning from others. It is not always how they did it, but what they did, and how are you going to use that because you understand yourself. And in other settings, in talking about leaderships, one of the things that I say and believe wholeheartedly is you must first understand yourself before you can understand others. Your values, what's important to you, how you do things. That doesn't mean it's correct, because sometimes you may have to amend yourself. But don't copy. Learn and apply. That's what's important.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Khadijah Holmes. I have a lot of notes here. I guess there was some key virtues that you all really pointed out, and I guess the two ones that pointed out to me was courage and honesty. And I am going to be in like a leadership position soon. It's like a first-time leadership position, and I guess one of the things that does worry me is when we do run into something that could kind of make or break the group. So I guess my question is, how do you give horrible news, or not horrible, but how do you give bad news and being honest with your, the people that your subordinates, while maintaining morale without risking your leadership position?
I think I truly understand some of the questions you're asking and the kind of line of question. But there's something I'd like to point out to you. Leadership is not always about giving bad news. Okay? Several of you have asked that kind of question. How do I tell somebody they don't want to hear? It's kind of like, oh, I'm going to be a leader, so how do I fire somebody? Okay? Well, believe it or not, there is great joy in having the opportunity to amass a group of people and create a mission that everybody buys into, and you move forward to success. And that's what you should be about. Now, sometimes there are some difficult things, and here's how I deal with it, okay? So let's just be straight up about, because the really question is how am I going to tell somebody they're fired? Well, in the first place, that's not your decision. If you're the leader that's helped set the agenda and the direction, and you communicate with people and you help them be successful, and you've got someone not doing that, that's their decision that they don't want to do it. It's not mine. So you have to have been patient and worked with them enough to make sure that you are doing the right thing. But at some point in time, it was their decision. you will know. Believe me, just trust me. You will know when it is time to have that kind of conversation, and you will be prepared if you have done your due diligence in getting to that point. And then you have to do it in a kind way. You know, and what you keep in your mind is, or I do, it's time to help this person be successful somewhere else. That's the concept.
And if the bad news that you're sharing is with a group, not an individual, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to consult with your human resources team or with your leadership. Everybody has a leader.
That's self-promotion.
Well, I know. I know. Don't be afraid to ask for that help. In that, by doing that, you get to explore what options are on the table for that group of people. You get some solid talking points about why the decision is being made. As a leader, if you are part of the leadership team, you need to also understand and support why those decisions are being made. If you don't support it, do not declare your lack of support to your group. That will damage your credibility as a leader. And you talk to whoever you need to talk to. If it's your boss and you don't get it, take the time to say, help me get there. I know this is what we have to do, but it doesn't feel right to me. Help me get there. Okay?
Leadership is a process by which an individual, that's the leader, influences, not directs, not orders, influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. That requires you to assess individuals' contributions to achieving that common goal. It's a goal set by the group, not by you, not by any other individual. If the person isn't contributing to the achievement of that goal, the group's goal, then it shouldn't be any surprise when the day comes when you have to say, as Mr. Harnage said, you need to find a way to be successful someplace else, because you will have sat down with them frequently to explain to them how they can improve their contributions to that common goal.
I think earlier I mentioned buy-in, and buy-in is really important, making sure that your team knows what the vision is of the team and what the expectations are. I think being an ineffective leader is not telling them what the expectations are, and then you have to make this harsh decision to fire them because they didn't meet the expectations. So as a leader, you have to know solid foundation of what the vision is, and then be able to prepare your team to accomplish that goal and get them all to buy into that vision. And that means, rewarding them along the way, valuing them, listening to them, but also monitoring the work and making sure the performance is being met. And monitoring the work means documenting things. But if you haven't done any of those things and then you have to deliver a harsh decision, you're going to lose the morale of your team because nobody has bought into the vision.
We have time for one final question.
I'm Anthony McNeil again. My questions, I have two of them. One is, how do you guys deal with mutiny amongst your organization? And also, how do you deal with public intrusion at potential discrepancies that they find detrimental to your organization?
Well, I don't think I've ever had a mutiny, so I don't know how I would deal with that. Maybe that's still in store. Your second question, I want to make sure I understand really what you're asking. You mean people interfering with your leadership, or?
Like an issue arises that you need to portray to the public and then demonstrate to them that, like, your reason without affecting your company's image potentially, or your organization's image. Some public relations, I guess.
make sure you got a good PR team, I guess. I mean, look, the only answer I can give you to that, which I think sustains all of us eventually, is being honest. Just you shouldn't do things you're ashamed of to begin with. So just be honest. That's, I don't know any other magic formula to that. And in today's world, everybody spends everything. But I think fundamentally in how you represent your organization over time is that if you have that reputation of being honest, that people will accept what you say as the honest answer. But you earned that as well.
Thank you. Please join me in expressing our gratitude to our panelists for the time to be here with us this afternoon. We can't afford to pay guys, but we have a small token to show just how much your advice and your time here with us means to us this afternoon, right?
Is it a t-shirt?
Yes, a t-shirt. Dr. Burnett has a long history in student affairs. It's like he knows it's a t-shirt in there.
You took it a handshake.
Again, final reminder, thank you guys for coming out this afternoon. Please sign in. Good luck with finals, and look out for the series next semester. It's going to be on Monarch Link, all right? Good luck with your finals, and stay warm.